The Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:30 p.m. This is the regular monthly board meeting being held on October 19th, 2021. We have a quorum with all members present with the exception of Mr. Hunt. Please join me in a moment of silence as to observe as you feel appropriate. All right, please stand me for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Dr. Nivens, are there any recognitions or awards?
Yes, ma'am, Madam President, there is one recognition. I will turn the floor over to Mike Jones, Director of Transportation.
Good evening,
Hi.
President Williams, board members, and Dr. Nivens. We've got some good news tonight. Every year, the Texas Association for Pupil Transportation conducts a school bus safety poster contest. And what we do is pick, from the kids that compete here, we pick those posters. They go to our regional contest in May. And from there, the winners go to the state contest in June. Our Assistant Director, Tracy Williams, spearheaded that and did a lot of the legwork to make this happen. And this year, we had two students, both from Navarro, that went to the regional and won. They went to the state contest and won.
Wow.
Samuel Medina won best in class for him.
Nice.
And if you'll turn around and show the back of that poster, Samuel. He's got a check for $250.
Wow.
Kaylee Gonzalez won best in her class, and she was also chosen as best in show. So she's received a check for $500. We just want to congratulate them and thank you for letting us be here to share the good news.
Take a picture with them? You want to come? You want to come? You want to get a picture?
Mike, we're gonna take a picture with you. You good, you good.
You're good?
Doesn't have to roll.
You want to get in the middle?
You can't say you don't have it.
That's right. Hadn't cashed it yet. But that was awesome. Dr. Nivens, are there any introductions?
No, ma'am, there are no introductions this evening.
Okay, Ms. Fossick, are there any public comment?
Yes, Madam President. If you wish to address the board, you must fill out a card and submit it before the presiding officer calls the meeting to order. While speakers generally have 5 minutes to address the board, the presiding officer may establish an overall time limit for public comment and adjust the time allotted to each speaker when necessary to accommodate a large number of speakers. However, no speaker shall be given less than 1 minute. All of this is in tonight will have 5 minutes. While the board values hearing from members of the public, trustees may not respond to comments as they are prohibited by law from discussing or deciding any subject that is not on the board's publicly noticed agenda. Speakers having complaints against individual district employees or trustees may only address the board after filing a complaint form in the manner provided for in board policy, DGBA for employee complaints, FNG for student and parent complaints, GF for public complaints. The presiding officer or designee shall determine whether a speaker has filed a complaint according to policy. Any speakers complain of individual district employees or trustees during public comment will be directed by the presiding officer to stop addressing the board and will refer the speaker to the appropriate complaint policy. As you come forward, please state your name. The first speaker is Robert Johnson. Up there.
Rather than run the risk going beyond my 5 minutes, I apologize. I'm going to read from my notes. Okay. Good evening, Dr. Nevins and school board members. I'm Robert Johnson, grandparent, as well as a great-grandparent of children who attend Dickerson and Carter elementary schools. I want to give the board a big shout out for the way you have handled the COVID issues since beginning in early 2020 until the present time. I believe the Lamar School District has been the model, if not the gold standard, for all surrounding school districts to follow. I appreciate the way the district values child safety as well as education, and they emphasize exemplary character. And you also value parental input as well. I appreciate that. I have family members and friends, their children attend other surrounding school districts, and they tell me they're very concerned about their child's education and that they feel that their child has fallen behind academically, and mediocrity is the standard now in their district. But I can assure you this is not happening at Lamar ISD. Just yesterday, I went to visit my granddaughter who's in the 2nd grade and attends Dickinson Elementary. She asked me if I could help her for math homework. I said, sure, until I was amazed at what they were being taught. I told her and the mom that when I taught 4th grade many decades ago, this math skill was a challenge for my 4th grade students. Now it's being taught in the 2nd grade. Also, my grandson, who's in the 3rd grade, has been at Dickinson Elementary since kindergarten, and he tells me every year school is getting harder and harder. These are 2 examples that tell me students in our district are being challenged, and the district is not taking their foot off the curriculum gas pedal, and I appreciate that. Alas, I have a great-grandson. Their family moved from Wichita, Kansas about 2 years ago. They moved into a neighborhood where their child is zoned to Carter Elementary. They say that was the greatest move they could have made for their son, because their son loves the teachers and the support staff, and he experiences tons of successes every day. He enjoys going to school and, quote, learning new stuff. In closing, Lamar ISD is off to another great school year start because of your leadership and courage. You have been faced with some tough and challenging issues, and the board has met them with great success, and I appreciate that. Thank you for allowing parents and grandparents to visit schools to have lunch with their children and grandchildren. Just today, I had lunch with my grandchild today. It was great. Thank you very much for that opportunity. Also, my daughter, who's a mom, is hoping one day soon she can once again volunteer at her child's school. I hope that day is coming soon. That will get us closer back to normalcy in Lamar ISD. I'm proud to be a part of this great school district, and I truly mean that. Finally, come this December, I will not mind paying those property taxes to Lamar ISD, because you're good stewards of my money, and I know we're in good hands with the school board and in great leadership of Dr. Nevins. Thank you for your service.
Our next speaker is Rebecca Clark.
To talk again. Oh gosh, gotta put my glasses on. I echo his sentiment. I think y'all have done an excellent job. I really do. So I feel the same way.
If you want to pull the laptop down a little bit so we can see
Oh,
it.
yeah, okay.
There you go. Oh, perfect.
Can you see me? Okay. And because I'm very pleased with the school district and I want it to stay that way, I just wanted to make y'all aware of a problem I feel that we have. Not here to complain. I'm here to get y'all's help on this, okay? I don't want y'all to think I come here to complain, because I'm just trying to keep the school district as good as it is by making y'all aware of some things. So, you know, our schools are supposed to be safe, where the children come, they don't feel pressured by, we try to eliminate the pressure between the students. You know, we can't eliminate it all, and certainly not pressure from teachers or administrators for the children to go against their conscience. And when I say children, I mean from 5 to 18, because, you know, as long as they're under our tutelage and not out yet, I consider them children. And we don't want them to dress in a way that's sexually provocative. We don't allow them to perform sexual acts at school. I'm going somewhere with this. We don't allow them to swear at the faculty or each other, at least not in earshot where people can hear it. We don't allow them to coerce others or make others feel badly because of who they are, what they look like, where they come in, what their values or beliefs are. But we have books that promote such things being offered at book fairs, the online book fairs, and then both online and in the libraries, okay? So I got an email from our high school, which is a great high school, but it advertised the book fair, and it said that they offer quality content and ultra readability. I'm like, good, okay. And then it proceeds to say detailed information about each book, including synopsis, reading level, genre, reviews, awards, potentially sensitive content areas, and more. And so I'm like, well, potentially sensitive content. Well, I don't even understand why we would, you know, we teach to the medium, right? We teach to the mean, is that what they say? Why don't we offer books that are valuable literacy tools, good reading? There's plenty of them that don't have potentially sensitive content. I just don't understand that. So I spoke with Chad at the technology department and kind of asked him posed that question, could we not choose a vendor who doesn't offer that kind of material, or could we specify to the vendor that we would like to not have that content available to our students? Because, like I say, there's plenty of things we can choose from that don't blur lines or make people feel uncomfortable. What I said to him was, you know, you don't go speak in front of a crowd, and if you're giving a presentation, you don't come in and use profanity. You're not going to read aloud specific sexual explicit content. Why? Because, well, it's not appropriate, number one. You can convey your thoughts, you can convey concepts without using that kind of stuff. So that was my stance on that, and he kept saying, you know, well, we want kids to have books offered at home because some of them don't have them at home, and that some people have different baselines in their homes than others, and I told him I feel like he was missing the point. The point is, offer good books. Yeah, give them books. But if they want to get that kind of content and their parents are okay with it, then let them do it on their own time, or, you know, out of the school. Don't let it be offered to the school, because I just don't feel like that's what we're here for, right? We're supposed to give them, you're not going to feed them junk food in the lunchroom, right? You feed them the best food. We feed them good food, nutritious food, because we don't know what they get at home, right? Well, we're going to offer them the best, and if when they leave the school and they want to go eat donuts and Twinkies all the time, that's on them. But as far as what we do, we want to offer the best teaching, the best resources, and like I say, there's plenty of things that don't have that kind of content. They're just good books, right? Even current literature that doesn't have that. My oldest daughter in 10th grade came home. She had 4 books to choose from in her honors English class that she was supposed to work with a group and do a book report as a group. Every single book. And I'm not a prude. My family, we talk about stuff, okay? It's not like, you know, I mean, I understand that sex is around. I understand that people cuss, but that's not what I model for my children. So anyway, I basically had to talk to her teacher because every single book had either profanity, and I'm talking not just like damn and hell, I'm talking stuff. And there was explicit sexual content in the books. And I'm like, so wait, these kids can't dress this way. They can't come to school and talk about this stuff, and yet they can't perform these things, but they're supposed to sit in a group and work together. And I only have 20 seconds left. I totally got off topic. I have books that I found online that, I mean, literally talk about abortion, like they're saying they had sex and they were a virgin and then they had an abortion and they did it at home. And in this book, they show smoking weed and pills. And this is a book that our kids can get. So I've got more. I'll follow up with an email. So sorry I went off track, but just want to make y'all aware. So.
Thank you.
That's all, Madam President.
Are there any board member reports? You want to talk about the conference?
I can. I mean, we did go to Dallas for the Cte conference, and it was great. We had a lot of very, very good content in it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not used to having to turn things on. Anyway, I went, several of us did go to convention, and it was very exciting to see everyone back in person and have the speakers that they had and the general sessions that they did, and see kids performing again. So we were, and it was exciting. I was glad to be able to go to Dallas and be able to participate. And of course, Ms. Bronzell and I got to participate in the, 3-hour delegate. And that also was a kind of an eye-opener, but it always is what TASB wishes to take to our state legislature to advocate for. And it's nice to be part of that. I also wanted to say we did have a busy month with dedications of schools, and proud of how Dr. Nivens did at the state. Well, we had Randall and Wright schools were dedicated, and Dr. Nivens was part of the state of the schools, and he did an excellent job, and very proud of you and up there with the other superintendents. But I also want to give a shout out, because there's many other things, and I know other board members have reports, but I was able to go to Lamar High School and see the play The Giver. Now, Lamar Consolidated High School has had trouble in the last few years getting really good drama teachers and be able to do productions, and boy, they hit it out of the park a couple weeks ago. I took some friends, and they said that an amazing production of The Giver. It was, the students were amazing. They really sent chills down your spine as you're watching that production. And I'm so excited because I know they're doing It's a Good Man, Charlie Brown, or Charlie Brown Christmas coming up, so I'll be eager to see that. And of course, I'll be going to see Alice in Wonderland. I just love that our district, between the bands and the sports and the orchestras and the theater departments, all our fine arts and activities that we do in this district and support, because we all know that an active student out of the classroom will be a better student in the classroom. So anyway, I just wanted to say those words tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Welch?
I've finally made it to Randall High School when the students were there. I've been trying to get over there, and I was sick on the first day of school. I had it on my calendar for a year, couldn't do it, but I walked the halls with Principal Montalongo, and that was last week, and so that was really good to see that building occupied with students in it. The other thing I want to talk about shout outs, I want to give a shout out to Michael Simler of Lehman Junior High. I finally got a purple track shirt, and I've been trying to get one for a long time, and he sent me one, so thank you, sir.
I, along with some of the other trustees, went to the conference, and it was awesome, fantastic. I want to give a shout out to Miss Julie McCain. She's our teacher one of our teachers at Lamar Consolidated High School. She was there alongside with Equal Opportunity Schools, and she led a session. So we had all these other state school board members in this room, and she was just talking about the program, but also talking about her love for our district and her love for our students, and how she's serving daily our students. And so it was cool to sit in and listen to her talk. And I also attended the Wright Junior High and Randall Newcoming, got to be part of the salsa competition that some of our students made some pretty darn hot salsa. And so to see this gringo up there sweating bullets and crying his face off because that salsa's hot. But when the kids won, they were excited, and they were just jazzed about winning a salsa competition. It was amazing. Also was invited out to ALC to judge some of the hallway displays that's going on there. And we have some really great stuff going on at ALC, and with 1621 coming up pretty soon, that facility is beautiful and it's serving in a way that needs to be served well. So to the facilities crew and everyone that's helped that building get to where it is now, that's a great job. And to Dr. Smith and Mr. Torres out there, the way they're leading those students and getting them involved is pretty awesome.
Ms. Bronzelli?
Sure I did that
There
right.
you go.
Okay. I was able to see the Lamar drumline perform at the Fort Bend Seniors Meals on Wheels event that they had, and they did such a great job. I was so proud of them, so I wanted to really let them know how much we appreciated that. They did a great job.
And Alice in Wonderland, you saw that as well?
Well, that was the tea. They did a tea party,
Oh, the
and
tea
so that was the tea party, and then the performance starts Thursday, and it runs Thursday through Sunday, so
Oh, gotcha.
that'll be great.
Very nice. Do you know anybody in that?
Yes, I do know Alice, so, yes, that'll
Very
be fun.
Yes. Anyone else? Well, y'all have said a lot of it. Dr. Nivens and I got to go to Culver and Meyer and Taylor Ray on Friday, and so that was a wonderful, we enjoyed our visits very much. And the student council from all the different schools was there that day, so we got to talk to them, so that was really fun. And a lot of good leadership and opportunities going on, and it's always sweet to see the little ones. So anyways, I think that's it. Dr. Nivens, do you have a report?
Yes, ma'am. Briefly, so October is Principals Appreciation Month, and we had the opportunity to feed all of our principals over a 2-day period some lunch. And so Ms. Cole-Hamilton did some research, and we asked principals, what's the number one thing that you would like? And so we had talked about shirts and pencils and all those things, but what they really wanted was an uninterrupted lunch. And so we met over a 2-day period. We kind of split them up in half, and we gave them an uninterrupted lunch. And our principals are a dynamic group of leaders, and your school is only as strong as its principal. And I've never seen a high-performing school with a mediocre principal. And so we really want to make sure we take time to mentor and coach and speak life into our campus leaders, because all that's going to do is just have a positive impact on the young people that we serve. And so for the principals, and some of them do watch the stream, and they'll send me a text afterwards, and they'll give me some feedback, and they'll say, good job on this or not so good job on that. And we have an open door policy that all of us are open to feedback, because feedback is a gift. And so I just want our principals to know that we truly appreciate them for the work that they're doing, because they're on the campuses every single day, making sure that our students are taken care of and making sure that they're learning, that our Tier 1 instruction is at a high level. So shout out to our principals, because they are a dynamic group.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we will take action on the consent agenda and current action items. So we are automatically going to pull, I'll read off that list, and then if you have any others to pull. AF, Part 1, I guess we pulled the whole thing. 9A1, 9B11, sorry, 9B11, and 9B12. So are there any other consent or current action items that need to be pulled?
Nope.
No? Okay, so, let me flip my page here. So then, may I have a motion to approve the current consent agenda and action items with the exception of 8F1, 9A1, 9B11, and 9B12.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Wells makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lambert seconds. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. We will now read the resolution on page 31.
I remembered. Okay. Whereas parent and family involvement in the lives of children is critical to their success, and whereas extensive research has shown parental involvement in education increases the likelihood of student success and is critical to students' achieving high levels of academic achievement and performance, and whereas the objectives of Parent Involvement Week are to promote a greater knowledge of the efforts being made in the district to encourage parental involvement in education, to provide a greater awareness of the parent-family involvement activities and resources that are available to parents and families of school-age children, and to promote a greater understanding of the responsibilities shared by parents, schools, and the community to ensure high student achievement. And whereas Parent Involvement Week will bring a greater awareness of the importance of parent and family involvement in the schools. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District declares the week of November 15th through the 19th, 2021, to be Parent Involvement Week in Lamar Consolidated Independent School District, adopted this 19th day of October 2021 by the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. Okay, so first item, do I have a motion to consider the approval of Board Policy 8F1? Mr. Hubenak makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I will.
Mr. Welch seconds. All in, let's see. So I pulled this item personally because I thought it'd be a valuable opportunity for our community to hear some highlights from this agenda item. It is the Localized Policy Manual Update 117. On page 45, it starts with the revised framework for school board development. And it goes through board members' training and orientation. And so I just wanted to pull some highlights that I thought would be valuable for the community here. This policy was adopted by the State Board of Education in 1996 and revised in 2020. And the latest update was issued in June of this year. Normally it's the 8 of us sitting up here tonight at 7. With the exception of Mr. Hunt, and that also includes our superintendent, Dr. Nivens, and the 7 trustees. We each have roles as trustees, the superintendent, and also a role as the team of 8. As far as the role of trustees, this is all part of the framework that we're, in our policy that we're going to vote on. We are to establish the district's vision and goals, adopt policies that guide the district, set priorities, establish governance protocols to oversee management of the district, adopt and oversee the annual budget, and hire and evaluate the superintendent. So those are the trustees' role. The superintendent's role is to achieve the district goals that we have set, including locally developed academic goals, demonstration of educational leadership, and management of daily operations. Then as a team of 8, it is the trustees' job to hold ourselves accountable to our adopted vision, goals, commitments, and operating procedures, while respecting the superintendent's responsibility and what we evaluate him on, which is to manage the school district and to direct employees in the district and all campus matters. When our community understands the different roles and responsibilities that the board has, that the superintendent has, and that we have as a team of 8, we are able to function more efficiently and effectively, and it greatly benefits our students. I know that's a mouthful, So simply put, if you have questions about our policy, our goals, or our budget, please reach out to any of the 7 trustees. Everything else that takes place in the district should go through the administration and through Dr. Nivens. Respecting these distinctive roles helps us to effectively meet the needs of our students, staff, and families. So that's all the discussion I had. Did anybody else have any discussion?
I wanted to publicize that it was, what was new to me when I first joined the board over 2 years ago was that I thought local policy was developed by the 7 folks sitting up here. But I would say, from my reading of it all, about 99% of it doesn't come from the local. It comes from Texas Association of School Boards, and we just adopt it and swallow it. So if you ever go and read our policy, you'll see what's called legal, which is the state code, and then you'll see next to that local code, which will flesh out some more details on certain areas. And the majority of that is not done by this board. Now, this board can change it, but in my time here, there's been very few times that that's happened. So these local updates are not coming from the 7 of us. We're basically adopting what we believe TASB has Lamar's best interest in mind in addition to all the other districts in the state. And we're saying, okay, we'll put this in our local policy.
Well, and also to piggyback on that, your local has to align with the legal. And if we have made any changes, when we have made them, we've had to send it through our attorney back to TASB, to the legal, to make sure whatever we are changing does stay in alignment so that we're all on the same page. So that's how that gets done. But
Yeah,
we
and-
have made a few little changes over the year, but nothing drastic.
Yeah, one of the things I like to say is that we're called independent school districts, and I would really like the state legislator to take that I out of the ISD, because we are not really that independent. When it comes down, if you read the state code, there's a lot of detail in there that we have no flexibility on. And so that's my 2 cents for this policy.
But the main thing I want us to get out of this too, though, is that we get a lot of emails. I think y'all get emails and questions and different things by our community, and I appreciate that because I feel like we're available to people to answer things. However, I think sometimes it's important to remember that not everybody sits in our shoes, and so we know exactly what our role is and what Dr. Niven's role is in the administration. So we're the policy budget, and we set the goals, but everything else should be directed, and everybody benefits when we all respect those roles and we adhere to them. So, all right. Do I have a motion to approve? Oh, sorry, we did. Yes, sorry, thank you. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. None opposed, motion carries. Yes. Okay. Next item is 9A1 on page 153.
So board, we'll have consider for your approval the district improvement plan. So, and the campus improvement plan. So Dr. Mosses is here to give us a summary of our district improvement plan process.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Nivens, and members of the board. The administration is requesting approval of the district improvement plan and campus improvement plans. Campus improvement plans for 21-22, and the district improvement plan is for a 2-year period from 2021 through the 2023, May of 2023. The SIP and the DIP are developed, reviewed, and revised annually for the purpose of improving student performance. Each document targets and addresses student needs and contains a comprehensive needs assessment that will identify priority areas in the needs of improvement. Also, they are aligned with the Lcisd 5-year strategic plan and responds to the collective district and campus performance data. These plans are living documents and will receive necessary revisions, especially in the area of the strategies to achieve the goals throughout this school year to address continually evolving campus needs. As you look at the district improvement plan and the campus improvement plan, they are aligned with our 5 priorities that are outlined in the Lamar CISD strategic plan: evolving the student learning experience, equipping students with the knowledge and skills to succeed in a changing world, promoting a safe and healthy environment, plan for a rapid growth while preserving district culture, and a focus on talent. As you look at the key points of the district improvement plan, specifically, it is a 2-year plan outlining SMART goals throughout the 22-23 school year. Each objective of the strategic plan contains performance objectives, otherwise called, what you probably have seen before, SMART goals, tied to the plan. It has multiple departments that have contributed to the district improvement plan. It supports the achievement of the 21-22 superintendent goals, and will provide we will provide quarterly updates documenting appropriate data sets and actions to be taken to achieve these goals throughout the year. As you look at an example of the strategic plan, here's an example of 2 family engagement objectives tied to Priority 1, Objective 2 of the plan. First one is Title I campuses will see a 10% increase in participation in parent and family engagement opportunities each year through the 2022-23 school year. The Performance Objective 3, again, this is an example in the area of family engagement. Project Learn will increase bilingual family engagement participation by 10% each year on district and campus events through the 22-23 school year. As you look at the next slide I have up here, this is focusing on the advanced studies. And there are 2. It is supporting Priority 2, Objective 1 of the strategic plan. Specifically, students will be meeting AP exam score indicators of a 3, 4, and 5 that will increase by 5% each year through that school year of 22-23. As well as the number of students that are meeting CCR, benchmarks on the SAT will increase by 5% each year. And that will be for this school year as we go into next school year as well. The next example that I have for you up here is focused on our CTE objectives. This is tied to Priority 2, Objective 2 of the strategic plan. Specifically outlined, the percentage of students meeting career readiness standards will increase by 5% each year through the 22-23 school year, again this year and again next year. And by June of 2023, all students enrolled in a CTE program of study ending in certification will have taken a certification exam, and at least 80% of those students will pass. The next piece that you see in front of you has to do with our 2 objectives that are focused on our social, emotional, and safety objectives. And they are tied to Priority 3 and Objective 1 of the strategic plan. For example, Performance Objective 1 underneath one of these is the number of students needing Tier 3 social emotional interventions will reduce by 5% each year through the 22-23 school year. And that we will provide required behavioral threat assessment training for all school resource officers within the first 2 years of employment by June of 2023. As you look at the performance objectives throughout the document, and it is a very lengthy document because it is focused on all of our strategic goals, our strategic priorities, and then the objectives of each, we have created performance objectives that tie into those, and then we have outlined strategies that are going to assist us in achieving those. Some of the areas that you see in the district improvement plan are the STAR performance targets in ELAR, math, science, and social studies, early literacy in math and reading, gifted and talented, special education, emergent bilingual, safety and security, community outreach, business and finance, facilities and planning, and human resources. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. Could you talk a little bit about the special ed program? Because since I've been paying attention to Lamar, it seems like it's been one of the areas where we get a lot of feedback where there could be improvement. And so could you talk a little bit about what this plan is going to do with the special ed program throughout the district?
Well, I think we have indicators, especially I think one off the top of my head is talking about the number of failures, both at elementary and secondary campuses, because we know that we have a significant amount sometimes of failures where they're struggling in the classroom. And so the strategies that were taking place within helping us support with the master list teacher, which is normally the inclusion teacher that is monitoring those kids, as well as bringing in Stetson training for both our inclusion teachers and our regular education teachers, that is continuing as we move forward.
Is there also an issue with getting proper staff, folks who are trained, who are willing to come in to take those jobs, or to stay around long enough to build up some?
I can tell you that when you look at across the nation and across Texas, I think, yes, you're seeing it is a critical shortage area in special education. It's not the only area, but specifically in special education. And a lot in our special education classrooms, a lot of them are also alternatively certified. And so they have passed a content test particularly, but are still working on their pedagogy. But the number of teachers, I think, nation and then Texas has started to dwindle even in teacher prep programs. So the answer to your question is yes.
When we see the 5% growth, it's pretty consistent at 5%. Is that historically what we have seen in the past? Is that why we chose that 5%, or is that just kind of like, that seems attainable?
When you look at the research that goes into SMART goals, which are performance objectives, part of that is that attainable portion, and attainable is normally between 5 to 10%. And so a lot of times if you are struggling, really struggling in an area, you might hit a 3%, reach high at 5%, and then at a lot of times your programs are going well and you're shooting for a 10% as well. And so it varies somewhere between really 3 and 10%, which I think you will see reflective in your documents.
And so when we look at the CTE and we said 80% for the CTE will get a certification, will some students pass the class but not get the certification, or is certification mean passing the class?
The certification means you have to pass the certification test.
So
and
it's
so we're
separate from schoolwork,
yeah.
bookwork. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. No.
The 2021-2023 District Improvement Plan and the 2021-2022 Campus Improvement Plan. Ms. Danziger makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lambert makes a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. None
Aye.
opposed, motion carries. Okay, next item is 9B11. Beginning on page 153, that is the discussion of board operating procedures. Have any discussion?
Are we voting on this tonight?
Yes.
Are we signing this tonight?
There's no signature page anymore.
Okay.
I
When we,
had put that in the email.
Ah.
Well, we can have a discussion technically, but
so the discussion is, where's the voting aspect of it listed? I didn't see that. Maybe you can explain what we're actually talking about versus the online board policy. What's the difference for the public's sake of the procedures in the online board policy?
the board operating procedures are different than the online policy. And so these are things that we have created personally. This is personal for our board, but it also aligns with our online policy as well. But there's some like kind of social contracts, different things in here that are not necessarily in the local policy. These are the things that we went over in our training session.
Yeah, so we had a board retreat about 6 weeks ago where we all met, and we talked, a lot of the time was consumed by discussing this. There's two things that I wanted to talk about and discuss. One is on page 161 of the board book, items for closed session. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that number 3 was part of the original draft. And I wanted to talk about that just a little bit, if that's accurate.
Page 161.
Items for closed session, number 3.
Which part are you questioning?
Well, it says the board may discuss any and all subjects for any and all purposes permitted by sections 551.071 to .084 in executive session. So I bring this up because somebody in another ISD, a parent, I was having a discussion with them, and what their assumption was that the board goes in the back room and has these executive meetings back there, and they discuss everything on the agenda, and they debate, and they just figure out how they're gonna vote, and then they come back in the public, and everybody just kind of rubber stamps, because there's such little discussion happening. And I just wanted to point out that that is not what we're permitted to do back there.
That's right.
It has to be very specific, but is this allowing us to talk about any of these items, even if it's not listed on the specific agenda? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Because we're giving ourselves a little bit of leeway here, because we don't, for every meeting and every agenda, we don't always list .071 to .084 necessarily.
So I didn't add anything different from what we discussed before, or from from our training or anything. You said you feel like this is different from the original draft?
Well, I have the original draft right here, and it's not listed on it. There's only 2 items listed for items for closed session.
Okay.
So it's nothing nefarious or wrong, it's just, we're giving ourselves permission to discuss any of these items in the back room, and some of those items are consultation with your attorney, talking about real estate, personnel issues.
But if you go to our board book where we convene in closed session,
It's the same numbers?
it's the
yes?
same numbers, and it's usually,
It's not the same?
But the
and
diff-
and those are not saying things that we're discussing, any of our action items. It's usually land,
712.
employment.
there's 4 listed on the current October board book. There's 4 laws listed. What we're giving ourselves permission to do is discuss any of them in the back room going forward, is the way I understand it.
So we might need to list out all 4 of them separately in the.
These had 5 right here.
I'm asking for
5, 6,
clarification.
7, 8, 9. I see what you-
If I may interject, so what the operating procedures does is it's a practice, and it's saying that the board may discuss any of these, but the board may not discuss any of these if they are not on the actual agenda. And so.
Per month.
Per month, yes. So it has to be on the agenda to go in closed session under that section if the board is gonna discuss it in closed session. If it's not on the agenda for that month, the board may not discuss it in closed session. The operating procedures just says you may discuss any of these whenever you would like, as long as it's on the agenda. So we probably just need to add, as long as it's on the agenda. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
On that month's agenda.
Okay. And I don't wonder if we need to go ahead and just list out the 4 numbers.
Well, there was actually more than that. Let's see.
I'm just looking at my script here.
Go to the page 4, I think it is.
It's a lot. The code, it's a pretty lengthy list of what
Yeah,
you can discuss.
I've got 8 of them listed here. and so
It's a
we've
pretty
only
lengthy
got-
list of what you can discuss in closed
There's 9,
session.
yeah.
And so, if the board's will, we can outline that if the board chooses, or we can just make sure that it's aligned with what we're gonna discuss in closed session during that month's meeting.
I just want to emphasize to the public, it is not a free-for-all discussion that the board can have back there unless it's specifically with the attorney, and it's not us debating each other back there. it might be a question about a particular item that we ask the attorney, he gives us the opinion, and then we come back out here to discuss and vote. But yeah, the law lists a lot of different things that this sentence encompasses that we don't always list every month. So I think I understand what you're talking about now.
Well, then do we need to, if we need to redo that, but we don't have the exact verbiage? I don't know if we need to table that. No?
To amend it.
That we can make a motion with corrections. Can't we do that? Sorry.
Is Clay in? Where is he? Okay, oh, that's Clay, okay. Okay. Do we need, can we do any questions before we make a motion with multiple amendments? Can we, if there's any more discussion, can we wait to make the motion when we have all? Okay. So, Mr. Welch, was there anything else?
Yeah, the other big sticking point for me is on page 164 here. And I have had some email communications with you, Joy, about this, full transparency. So there's two parts. One of this says communication in the middle of the page, and it says, number 2, under the heading communications, request for information to the superintendent from a board member will be communicated to all board members via the superintendent's weekly update. Okay, keep that in mind. So then bounce down to number 1, under individual board members' request for information or reports. Board members should request information and or reports from the superintendent through the board president. So up here, we got whatever we request will go in the weekly email to the rest of us. And down here, it's saying it should go through all the board president. But my real issue is through the board president, because I think that violates our local code BBE. I have the paragraph here, but also we all sit up here duly elected as individuals. And I don't like ceding that authority or that power to whoever's sitting in the president's chair. I want to be able to request information if I have need for it as an individual elected representative of Lamar, of the superintendent. And I feel like this is going to filter it. I think the intent is noble. I think it's to consolidate a lot of requests and so that we're not overwhelming the administration. But I think that it limits us. So I have a real problem with this section. And in fact, if we were going to sign it and this was going to be included, I wasn't going to sign the document, because the original draft had a signature page in the back. But I believe that this also violates the online board policy, which is BBE, which this cannot contradict. It says an individual board member acting in his or her official capacity shall have the right to seek information pertaining to the district fiscal matters, business transactions, governance, and personnel matters, including information that properly may be withheld from members of the public in accordance with Public Information Chapter of the Government Code. So this is saying, the policy that supersedes the procedures is saying that individual board members have a right to request that information. But we seem to be wanting to take that authority or power away from each individual and consolidate it with the board president. So that's why we need to strike this, in my opinion.
So as we discussed as well, we changed the verbiage from shall to should, so that it's not a requirement, it's a suggestion. Because in the past and other issues, and not that it's something that really relates to our current board, but if someone is using up or attempting to use up a lot of the administration's time for different reports and that type of thing, and it's not necessarily necessary, when it's a substantial amount of information that they're looking for, it's helpful to go through the president so that they know what we're asking as a board of the administration outside of what's being asked in open session during our meetings. And so that's why we changed it from shall to should. So it's not a requirement, as a suggestion.
And I think we discussed during that board retreat that we're trying to make something that lives even past us. So,
Even if it's not something that we're currently,
right.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it can become a problem if, and if several board members individually come to the board president and say, we want to hear this, then you can say, we're already getting it, and it's already passed on.
That's right.
So so I can see both sides, but I see what we're trying to do is just keep the communication going too.
Yes. Any other comments on that? So with the should in there and not the shall, are you still interested in striking that?
I'm still interested in striking it.
Okay.
I think it's an unnecessary sentence or paragraph.
So we'll hang on to that one till the, did you have any others?
I think that's it. We've had a lot of other changes from the original
Yes.
Draft.
Did anyone else have any?
John, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are you more concerned with being able to ask Dr. Nivens for information? Or are you more concerned with being able to ask the staff for information? I'm just curious. Or both?
I want a free flow of communication lines between me and Dr. Nivens as individuals.
Because I feel the same way.
I mean, I don't,
I
know.
feel like I should be able to ask Dr. Nivens what I want to ask Dr. Nivens.
Absolutely.
And I shouldn't have to go through anyone else to be able to ask Dr. Nivens for information.
All right, I agree.
So if that's what this is addressing, I should be able to ask Dr. Nivens what I want to ask Dr. Nivens.
It's about, like, historically on the board, I know there were times when there was reports being asked. I want to report on this, I want to report on that type of thing, and using up a lot of the administration's time, not the typical questions that we have. And so we could either, if y'all aren't comfortable with that, we can scratch that, but it it helps if that does become an issue with someone. It helps if there's multiple requests for one thing. We typically don't run into that. So no, it would not change the way you communicate at this point. It's like for reports and that type of stuff. So that was the intention behind it. So it's,
That's since this board has been in place, there's been that concern?
no, I'm saying prior to our current,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
yes.
okay.
So what we're trying to say is, if I wanted a report from let's say from the finance department about something, I would need to go through either you or Dr. Nivens, whatever I felt comfortable with, but knowing that he alone would go to the different people involved, that I would not go directly to those people. It has to come through Dr. Nivens, and I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. And a lot of time, and at the end of every meeting, we ask, does anybody want an information item to be put on the board agenda? That's really, how we would like to flow, so everybody hears it and everybody hears it once and the administration can prepare for the next month. So ideally, that is how we should be operating.
And that's usually how it works. There's always something that comes up in the middle, but you also give a timeline on here too.
Yeah.
You can't just come up with something a few days before a board meeting.
My thoughts are that just those two on the same page, they do communicate something different, I think, to me, as I read it. I think one
Those two on the
says,
same page, say that again?
just that they do communicate, one says to go to them, the other one says go to the president. So I think, for just the random general person reading it, they do somewhat, being in that same area, to me, that reads as, now reading it again and again and again, I do see where there could be some confusion in that communication. of what it's trying to say.
Just on number one?
No, just having both of them listed here,
Oh.
because the way it reads is, like to John's point, that the board members can go to the superintendent, and then just the way it reads, board members should go to the board president or presiding officer. So they do communicate two different things, I believe. That's the way I'm reading it.
Well, why don't we move on, and if somebody wants to make a motion to amend it, we'll go from there.
They're both asking for information. That's,
You're talking about just number one?
And
Well, communication request, number 2, request information to the superintendent from a board member will be communicated to all board members, and then board members should request information reports from the superintendent through the board president. So they're both, if one was just reports and one was just information, those are two different things, in my opinion. One is asking for clarity, and one is probably asking for a
What numbers are you talking about, just to make sure I know what you're talking about?
I was talking about number 2 under communications and number 1 under individual board requests. And I don't know if that's the same ones you were.
Yeah, those are the two I mentioned.
Okay.
Well, number 2 is just saying that he's gonna share that information that somebody has requested it, so
Okay.
that we all see the same information.
Correct.
Like he currently does.
yeah, so that somebody is, that's basically saying that we can request information, and then he's gonna take that information we requested to the superintendent and disseminate that out to all the.
And the point is that the policy that supersedes this is BBE local gives you the
Right.
right as an individual board member to request that information.
Right, and that's what, it says should, it doesn't say shall. So if we want to
Right.
make an amendment.
And we keep coming
can.
back to that, and we're circling.
Okay, so let's move on, and we can take when we make a motion, we can go from there. Okay. Any other items?
Since we're here, let's talk about it. 166, media inquiries to the board. Well, this is another point of minutia possibly, but it says, A, all board members who receive calls from the media should direct them to the board's spokesman. So here's the question. If this is an issue that happens in Lamar or is dealing with Lamar, and I am contacted by Channel 2, Channel 11, Channel 13, whatever, I understand what I'm supposed to do. I am not supposed to give a reply to that media reporter. I am supposed to direct them to either you as the current board president or the administration. Correct? Everybody follow me? Everybody agree with that? And that's what we're saying here. Okay, so here's the distinction. If there is an issue happening in the state legislature, and I have spoken out about it, for or against it on social media, and it's not something pertaining to Lamar specifically, but they want John Welch's opinion, they want Joe Hubenak's opinion on it, what are we to do in the event that Channel 2 contacts me or Channel 13 contacts him? Because at that point, I feel like Joe could go speak as his own individual self, clarifying that he's representing himself as an elected official, speaking out about an issue that's dealing with public education broadly, not specific to Lamar.
I think the clarification is that when you speak out, you have to make it clear, and if whether the reporter does or doesn't take it, is that you are doing it, your opinion, which may or may not be the full opinion of the board. You're not speaking for the board, you're speaking for yourself as a taxpayer and as an individual who follows that information. But that's the clarity that has to be made, is that you're not representing the board at that moment.
That's what I thought, and this has happened to me in the last 6 weeks about an issue that I spoke out about on social media, and I did not grant that interview because it could have done no good. But in the future, I'm just wondering, are we all understanding and agreeing to that point, that what Kay just said?
Yes, but whether you like it or not, I think you're gonna be perceived as a representative of the Lamar Consolidated District. You may state this has no, I'm not speaking for the district as a whole or the board as a whole, but at the end of the day, you're still an elected.
You're gonna be a reflection of it anyway.
Sure,
but-
so here's the thing, so here's how we're limiting ourselves. Zach just ran for the board, he's elected to the board. Didn't have a challenger, God bless you, but elected to the board for 4 years, so he in his own right is a district representative, an official representative of this district. Since he's not sitting in that chair, he has, according to this, ceding his right to speak to the public unless he's ever in that chair. I'm speaking to the media. He is never to speak to the media unless he's sitting in that chair.
I don't think
Well,
that's
that's-
right, but that's in any public office, just like any part of any board. You know, that's just the way it is.
As an individual, you have the right to speak to anyone at
Yeah.
any given time for any given reason. But,
But
It's
you're
gonna
gonna
be
reflect
perceived.
on that board, so
exactly.
just know that,
Because reporters don't have to make that distinction.
yeah. That's just the way it is.
No, I mean, I know you speak for you.
Yeah.
Without you even saying so. But
But they're always
what?
gonna say,
the article will read Lamar
John
Consolidated.
Yeah.
Board of
LCISD
Trustee.
board trustee.
And I think if it gets really hairy, that's when you need to contact Dr. Nivens and our communication person and just say, this is what I've done, if it's something pretty hairy. Sometimes it's very simple. If Zach is at an event and they come up and talk about the event and but he's a board trustee, but he's at an event doing something, that's very easy and careful and, but if you're someplace else, it could get pretty in the weeds, and you just have to be careful for yourself.
And was their intent because they knew you as John Welch before, or are they calling you because you're a board member and they think you represent the district, who is something to think about?
Would they have called you if you had not been on the board, I guess is what you're asking.
I know they wouldn't have called me. I can say that
And
hands
if they
down.
not call them.
Well, I speak out and I give my opinion, as most in this room know, and I always speak for myself, and I'm very clear that I don't speak for anybody else in this room.
And you can always say that.
Right.
So are you wanting this to receive calls regarding school business, district business, or?
The motivation here is I don't want to be reprimanded in this room if this happens,
Right.
because, I violated the policy, which is as said.
I think you can't give a statement on school business, you know. You can't be representing the district when speaking,
Right.
you know, obviously.
That kind of goes to, on page 168, after number 19. In addition to LCISD policy BBF local, before I communicate through any public media, i.e. social media, the local newspaper or television station, etc., I will consider the impact that my actions may have on the other trustees. So even though we speak for ourselves, considering how it may impact our other trustees is something that has been added to our board ethics. So that kind of goes along with what you're talking, I think, about, John.
So just know whatever you say, somebody else might say, he doesn't speak for me.
And on a
Which is what I
side-
would expect.
But
It might
we
just
all
happen that
deal
way.
with the after effects,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
We all deal with it. So it's a consideration for all the trustees. Is this worth it? Is it how it may impact them? Is it better to have one unified voice, which is usually, left up to our leader, our fearless leader in communications department, so, but, yes, sir.
And a side note to all the viewing audience, the reason we're discussing this now, because it seems like something somebody watching this would say, why are they talking about this now? Why are they wasting this time? All that violation of open meeting acts. So I just wanted, this is part of the education piece for me that I'm learning, but also for everyone else watching. That's why we're doing this now,
Thank you.
because it's on my head.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert.
did you have anything else on the median?
Yes, that's it.
All right, anyone else on any other pieces of the procedures? Okay. So, Mr. Clay, I may need your assistance here. Okay, so, do I have a motion to approve the board operating procedures as presented?
Or as corrected?
We haven't corrected anything because we haven't opened it up yet, so if somebody wants to,
How do we want it?
or just to discuss, do I just make a motion just to discuss them and what do I need to do here at this
Typically,
point?
you would make someone would make a motion to approve as was submitted. And if there's a motion, then you'd see if there's a second. Then there would be an opportunity to discuss it more if someone wants.
Okay,
And someone could make a motion to amend at that point. And if there's a second to the motion to amend, then you would deal with that one first and then go back.
perfect. Okay, thank you, sir. So do I have a motion to approve as is?
So to amend, we have to make an initial motion.
We still have to make a motion in order to amend
Okay,
it.
so I'll make the motion to approve as is.
Okay,
So
Ms. Danziger, do I have a second?
No.
So we have to have a second.
We have to have a second in order to amend it.
To amend
Okay.
the original.
So I need somebody,
I'll
well,
second.
thank you, Mr. Hubenak. Okay, now is there any further discussion?
So now we can
If
amend the
someone
original
wants to
motion.
offer
Yes.
But
a
now somebody
motion
else has to make that
amend,
motion. I can't make the motion
I'm-
because I
I'm
already
locked
made the
too.
original motion.
Okay,
So somebody else
I
has
would
to.
like to make a motion.
okay,
You would like to amend the motion.
Yes, I would like to amend the motion.
okay.
I would like to strike, under the headline, or the title, individual board member requests for information or reports, I'd like to strike all of number 1.
Could you give, sorry,
That's page 164 in the board book.
So does he need a second on that?
Yes.
is that the only
Or
amendment that you're
adopt.
making? Can he make more, he can make more than one minute amendment at the same time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Or should we do it individually?
You know, if he makes more than one amendment to it, there may not be a second for all of those changes.
Okay, so
So
we
Yeah.
can do it individually.
you may want to
Okay.
just do it individually.
So we'll just start with the first
So are you
one.
just gonna do that?
Little
I'm
bit.
just doing that, I think that's the only one that I
So I'm
need.
gonna second his amendment.
Okay, which one are we striking?
Page 164, under individual board member
Okay,
requests
number
for
one.
information, number
Okay.
1, correct, Mr. Welch?
That's correct.
Any discussion?
Well, then does number 2 since it followed number 1, is that
Oh.
gonna be, need to be there, or?
The way I read number 2 without number 1 there is that if an individual board member requests the information, the superintendent will gather that information and disseminate it to the board members.
Okay.
Do you think that's accurate? That's the way I understand it. Legal agrees.
Okay, so,
What'd you say?
Legal agrees with Mike.
but do we need to change the verbiage of number 2 then, or leave it the way it is?
I think we leave it the way
The
it
only
is.
thing that it would be missing is if, when information is requested,
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
but
So, when information requested from board member to the superintendent, it will be, then the superintendent will gather information. That's a little too many words. I think, we have a little out, just as a side note, that says the board operating procedure will be reviewed and updated as needed. So if we don't get it perfect, we can update it when we need to. Correct.
I think all you have to add at the beginning of number 2 is when requested,
When requested? Okay.
but that's gonna have Johnson to make that motion. Make that part of his motion.
My motion's already been seconded.
Oh, well, I'll have to make another.
You make another one.
I need my cheat sheet for,
So there could be discussion of the amended motion that's been seconded, if you want.
You can amend the
And
amendment.
If there's no discussion, you can vote.
Yeah,
yes.
get that out of the way.
Okay. So your amendment, to be clear, is to strike into the number 1, board members should request information and or reports from the superintendent through the board president or presiding officer.
That is correct.
Okay. All in favor? Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. None opposed, motion carries. Okay.
Now, can we amend that amendment?
Yeah, well, you can make another.
We can just make a brand new one, right?
Yes,
Just, yeah.
So, but I don't know, can I make a motion since I made the original motion?
yes.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the amendment for number 2 to read, when requested, the superintendent will gather information or report and disseminate to the board in a timely manner.
So you want to add the 2 words, when requested, and a comma. When requested, okay.
I'll second that.
Mr. Welch seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, no opposed. Okay.
Now, do
Any
we go back
further-
to the original motion?
Well, you would only go back to the original motion if those did not pass.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add something real quick, that Dr. Nevins has always been available to all of us.
Yes.
So I don't want anyone watching
Right.
or
absolutely.
listening
Absolutely.
to perceive this as,
Yes. Were there any other motions or amendments?
Did you
Mr.
want to do
Welch?
something on page 161?
166, are you good?
No, I think I understand it now. Dr. Nivens explained it very well. My discussion on on page 161.
Number 3, you're okay?
Yes.
Okay.
What about 166?
I think I understand. I just was using that discussion portion to clarify that we are all on the same page and understanding what these mean, these words. So I don't have any more motions to make.
Anyone else? Okay, so we should be done with that one, yes? Okay. Moving on. Thank you. The next one is 9B12 on page 171.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Nivens, and members of the board. I am presenting information tonight regarding the visitor policy in 21-22 and the visitor policies in comparison to when it was pre-COVID. As you begin to see on the slide, the protocols currently for COVID for 21-22. So when we were in red, all visitors were screened during the school day, and staff would utilize virtual meetings and electronic communication options as necessary. And so that was as necessary. I think the key piece of the COVID protocols is the after-school groups. Parent organizations can visit campuses before and after school and during student holidays. Parents can eat with their student in a designated area determined by the campus. So a parent did not have any interaction with a child that was not theirs, according to the current policy, but could come in the morning or after school or during student holidays. I also want to add to this that we do have volunteers in our schools that are working where kids are not present in the libraries, in the copy room as well. Also, in our protocols, we have ARDS, 504s, and LPAC. Meetings can be held virtually or in person at the request of the parent or guardian. Campuses were told to designate an area in the near front of the building so there wasn't a lot of traffic where kids were at that point. As we begin to look at where we were pre-COVID, all visitors still had to report to the main office, and they had to report in, and they went through our Raptor system. And so they would sign in as a visitor, they would present their state ID, and then they would wear a visitor's badge. All of these through the Raptor system are screened for registered sex offenders to ensure that our students are safe. And visits to individual classrooms during the instructional time were permitted only with the principal providing pre-approval, and only so long as their duration of frequency does not interfere with the delivery of instruction or disrupt the normal school environment. When you look at parents must have had a student in a classroom even before our COVID protocols to visit that particular classroom. If they were wanting to observe, they again went through the school principal in a classroom. They could go into their child's classroom, but that time was limited to at least 30 minutes. And then again, pre-COVID, we allowed, as we are doing now, providing opportunities for lunch with their children when they're visiting as well. What questions do you have?
Mr. Welch, I believe you requested this.
I did request this. I don't have any questions for the administration.
What's happening with the tutoring right now of students?
If students, they have to sign up, like our mentors currently right now. So if a parent signs off that they're going to be working with a tutor, then they're able to do so. But the parent would be notified.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I want to make sure. So
Yes.
so any person that's coming in to tutor or work with a child, the parents are notified and know ahead of time that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
But that is happening in all the schools that,
Particularly with, right now, currently with our mentors, for sure, yes.
okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion? Well, we're not gonna,
I don't have a question of the administration. I'm not done with the visitor policy though. So
Okay.
I don't know how to proceed here, so.
for discussion?
I would, discussion. I would like us to adopt the pre-COVID visitor policy with the one exception, that the last sentence on the COVID side, the ARD 504s and the LPAC meetings can be held virtually or in person at the request of the parent or guardian. I'd like that to also be part of the visitor policy, so that if a parent requests that, it can still be done virtually. I think that it's time. I think I just saw the governor talking about hospitalizations are way down. Anybody at this point who's wanted the vaccine has had more than ample opportunity to get the vaccine. If people get COVID with or without the vaccine, there's plenty of treatments out there that are very effective. The medical world knows how to deal with COVID now. There's not a 100% survival rate, but it is really close. And I think it's time to take off the rest of the COVID protocols for visitors in our schools. I think I had a principal tell me recently that they missed the interaction of the parents at the school during the school day. And that it's good for the students to see the parent involvement up there at the campuses. And so that's where I'm going, and that's the motion I intend to make after our discussion.
Dr. Musich, can I ask you a question again? So the difference, as I understand it, when you say the parent involvement, what specifically are they missing? Do you know?
Can you help
Well,
answer that?
you said they say they miss the parent involvement. So what are they missing? Because when I hear you talk about it, where it's pretty much the main difference is they can't sit with the kids, but they
When-
can still assist.
If you're looking at, we will not allow currently right now a parent to be with other children. They can be with their parent. And so just even as an example, let me use an example of, we have, like we talked about the mentors, we're signing off so that they can be with another adult on that. We have parents that are coming in to work on as a copy room. We have parents that are working as library aides, but they're not engaging directly with kids. They're not going into classrooms where their child's there, and then you might have another 22 kids in that room that are not related to that mother or that father that is coming in. And so that can happen in the school day currently right now. What we're not doing is allowing during the school day them, again, to go in and observe a class of their child because, again, there's 22 other kids in that classroom. Does that make sense?
So that's the difference right now.
Yes.
But that's not really parent involvement. I mean, that's not help. Is that what you were referencing?
Yes,
Okay, could I?
please.
We have Thanksgiving coming up.
Mhm.
We have Christmas parties and things coming up. Are the parents gonna be able to come in during a school day and help with those? Or if we stay with the COVID protocols on this side, they would not be able to come into the building and be in the school during those activities? Is that
According to
correct?
the protocols currently right now, that would be true, is that they're not going to be able, they can be with their child, but they cannot be with other children during that time, unless it's before or after school for parties or gatherings, not during the school day, because then children have a choice.
Let me clarify that for you, Ms. Danziger. So for instance, if second grade class is having a Thanksgiving party and the students aren't in the room, how many parents want to come in that building to decorate that room and assist and help is perfectly fine. And those parents can still stay as long as they are with their child. And so the original intent of this is when you have parents that are, everyone's on both spectrums of the virus. When you have parents who tell their students, I need you to go to school and do not remove your mask for whatever reason unless you're eating or drinking. And then as a school district, we allow a parent in the classroom to have access to that student. And that other parent doesn't know that someone has access to my kid. That's what we're trying to avoid at this point in time, is to make sure that when parents send their kids to school, is that they know the environment that they are in, and we're not introducing a different variable into that environment without the parent knowing. And so that's why we talked about mentorship. And if a parent knows my student's being mentored and they sign off on it, no, not a big deal at all. The main thing we want to do is protect the parents and the students, the integrity of the school environment. And when I send my kid to school, I want to make sure the environment is what I believe I'm sending them to, and it is not changed without me knowing.
So if a class went out for recess and the parents went in, decorated everything up, put all the food out, got everything ready, and then they left and the children came in, then
Right.
that would be total protocol of allowing the parents into the building to do that,
Yes, ma'am.
as long as they're going directly to their room and not with other children.
That's correct. The main thing is to protect children that don't belong to other people.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just think about all the other things that are suffering from the PE performances and the choir, the music performances. I remember, I would go to Jane Long with my kids and watch the awards and all these things. Our kids are missing out on some of these activities and seeing the faces of the parents. Watchdogs, for example, all these things that interaction of having that positive person on campus, just, walking the hallways, opening the doors, those things matter.
And again, if it's an event, if it's a choir practice or not choir practice, but a performance, and parents will come in the audience and they can watch the students perform. Again, it's about interacting individually with another person's child, and that parent does not know.
I would want to make sure we have that clarification to all of our staff that we can do these performances, we can do these events, we can do these things, and we want people to come and watching and hanging out and being part of this audience to watch our students do something fun and exciting and learning and all that.
So you're talking about like a success assembly at the end of
Oh,
9
yeah,
weeks.
absolutely, absolutely. They
But
don't
then
like,
parents are not really interacting with the children.
Right.
They're
Right.
being an audience.
exactly, yeah, and they were like, Jane Long, we would have music performance, and they would all gather in the cafeteria or the gym, and we'd have fun watching them. But I would just
Yeah.
make sure our staff know that these things can still take place. We're not saying you can't do these things.
Got it. Point well taken. We'll make sure they, yeah, those are not off the table. It is strictly about a parent having access to someone else's kid without the other parent knowing. It is strictly about that.
Any other discussion?
If there's no other discussion, I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay.
My motion is that Lamar CISD adopt a pre-COVID visitor policy in addition to allowing for ARD 504s and LPAC meetings can be held virtually or in person at the request of the parent or the guardian.
Is there a second?
Let's have a vote on it at least, guys, come on.
Okay, I don't hear a second. Okay, moving on. We will now have presentations on the information items.
Good evening, members of the board, and Dr. Nivens here tonight to share some information with you about our current bond projects. First, always updating you on our pay applications. For September, we had 47 pay applications for a total of $4,407,523.70. Couple projects that are currently being closed out. First, this is a great picture of our Terry High School band area. The project is complete, and the final payment recommendation is scheduled for next month's board meeting. That gives you a good visual of that repurposed and refreshed space. Next is a project that is coming up, and that is at Jackson Elementary School. Their special needs playground is in need of refreshing. This is a cooperative proposal that's coming in. There's some bond funds that will be involved in this, as well as special education funds to create that great play space for those special education students at Jackson. And this is scheduled to be completed in March of 2022. Next item is our plating services. Wanted to share with you a little bit about when we see plating, what that means. This one specifically, we're talking about, we have one coming up for the LCISD police station. A subdivision plat is an oversized survey plan or a map in a specialized recording format. It is also used to create streets and easements and other rights of way. Platting is an important step of the land development process, which includes such items as frontage for future road widening, easements for drainage control or utility areas, drainage improvements and detention areas, extend public utility lines, land use restrictions, and new roads to be designated, built, and dedicated. Additionally, the plat must be signed and approved by the owner, so that would be LCISD, the city and/or county in which it resides. This process will occur on the proposed site as previously identified at the regular Lamar CISD board meeting September 21st of this year. And again, that goes back to the platting that you were shown in a previous presentation of the slide of where that police station will occur on our property across the street on Avenue I. Any questions on any of those projects or on the plating process?
Could you go back to one slide to that?
Yes.
So the money for the police station was in the 2020 bond, is that correct?
That is correct.
And I see here you have a future expansion of the police station.
Yes.
So my question is, I assume you're gonna not build the future expansion when you build the original building?
No, sir. What you do is when you create that initial building, you create it and orient it in a way that it's much more easily expandable. For example, your hallways can run in a direction that if you added square footage behind it, you could run those hallways longer and create more space. So there are ways that we can orient the building and the way that we create that space. For example, the way the roof is put on so that it's possible to tie into a future roof expansion. So we want to be very mindful. As we've gone out to the 4 different police departments we've gone to, one overarching piece of advice is build it big from the start, and also you're going to expand at some point, so make it so you can expand that process.
And I'm asking ignorantly here. My question is, why don't you just build the whole thing as big as you need it, knowing our growth in the next 15 years?
As we shared, right now we have 29 officers, 22 uniformed officers, and the space that was proposed is about 15,000 square feet. That space will be able to take additional growth as the district expands for a pretty good period of time at 15,000 square feet.
Gotcha.
And at some point, when the force and the district gets larger, it would be possible to expand. But we feel like this initial 15,000 square feet will suit the district for now and for a good period of time in the future before we need an expansion.
And when do we need another bond for that?
Yes, ma'am. And to give you an idea,
We don't have the
we
money.
went to Cy-Fair, their original police department was 5,000 square feet when they started.
And ours would be 15,000?
15,000
Oh,
square
wow.
feet, yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. I want to give the board a transportation update. Mike and I are going to do this together.
2-for-1 special tonight.
There we go.
We know you've gotten a lot of phone calls about late buses and operational issues for us this year. Just to give you an idea of what we're facing, last year at the end of the year, we were running about 10,500 students on the bus per day. And right now, we're running approximately the same number of buses on the road every day that we had then. And now we're at 16,500 students. So it's been a challenge. We hired 16 new drivers for the start of the year. We are doing weekly interviews. We do weekly group interviews. We have 18 in training. We have 16 waiting to clear HR. Actually, since we put this together last week, we had 2 tests and are actually training on their route, and we'll start driving a route on their own probably sometime this week. We held a job fair on July 31st in person at our Rosenberg facility, and that was pretty successful. We got about 12 good applicants. We're doing another one this Saturday, and we're working with M&O and Child Nutrition. They'll be there too, so we're looking for all the applicants that we can get. The requirements for school bus drivers, you gotta have a clean criminal history and driving record, a Class B CDL with P&S endorsements, that's for passengers in school bus. Gotta pass an annual physical exam. You gotta complete our Lcisd training program, and then you also have to complete the TEA and DPS 20-hour school bus driver certification course. And then every 3 years, you have to go through an 8-hour recertification course for that. Our process is that we, when we do our interviews, we recommend those applications to HR. Once they're approved and clear the HR hurdles, then we put them to work during their training, trying to hold on to them. We hire them as aides and van drivers. We use quite a bit of vans. and that's been pretty successful for us. The Cdl test, once they take all of their written tests, it can take up to 2 months to schedule the driving test. You may not have known this, but when the federal government changed the way that we had to do the testing, we went from 129 testing facilities in the state of Texas where you could get a CDL test, a skills test, to 22.
Wow.
Rosenberg happens to be one of those places where we can do it, but that's one of the reasons for the backlog. It also went from taking about 45 minutes to about 2 hours. Once they complete all of their training, which includes training on a route with an experienced driver, then they're released and will take over a route on their own. How are we doing this? We have our flex drivers, dispatchers, and BOSs driving every day, mechanics, and we have some coaches that are driving as well. We have about a dozen coaches that help, and they drive routes for us as well. Managers dispatch and drive also. Unassigned routes are combined. They're either put together if they can be with the number of students, or typically a bus will go out and drop off some kids, come back and get another load, and that's how we're doing that. Even with the 29 staff that we have driving, our full-time staff driving, at the beginning of the day we still have 14 open routes, and that's before anybody calls in. You know, last Friday was one of the days that I hate because it was Friday and it was payday. Those days are always hard. Wanted to kind of give y'all just a quick update on the accident that we had. I know probably a lot of you seen that on TV back in June 30th. We had a bus that was a full-size bus, but it had one pre-K student on it, and a driver and an aide, and it was headed up 723 near Rolling Oaks. And you know, you're always worried about what you see when you come up to those things, but the driver was doing everything right. He did everything that he could. But there was a 17-year-old Cte student coming southbound. For whatever reason, he just came over into our lane and hit the bus head on. Our driver was able to get the bus down to below 10 miles an hour by the time the impact happened. And at the same time that the bus was hit in the front by the car with the 17-year-old, there was another lady behind us in a pickup that she hit the back of the bus. And unfortunately, that totaled a 1-year-old, $116,000 bus. So we're still working with the insurance companies, but it looks like they had $25,000 in liability insurance on that job. So we'll get a fraction of what we should for that bus. Any questions?
Where is this job fair? And how can we tell our people?
It's going to be, we'll have signs out. It's going to be at Rosenberg. We'll have big wavy signs. The city of Rosenberg does not like us putting those out, but they've agreed that on the day of the fair, they'll let us put those out. So it's going to be at our facility and behind it on the Lamar Junior High bus ramp.
And what
And
time
it's
does
just
it
kind
start?
of a drive-through. It's a 9 to noon
9 to noon this Saturday.
this Saturday.
9 to noon this Saturday.
The district put it out. We also put it out in social media. It's also, there's information on our website as well. So there are places where folks can see that, and we'd love to spread the word as much as possible to have folks come in for any of our support services personnel, and bus drivers especially.
Thank you all so much. We know you're really working hard and trying to get it, and we know you're getting harassed about the buses, but we appreciate it.
It's you know, next March is 40 years for me. I've never seen this like this.
And it's everywhere. And we did give a pay raise to all the bus drivers this year, didn't we?
Yes.
And we're comparable to the other districts.
I think we're ahead of most of the other districts. We're just so close to that $20. We're at $19.39 to start, and I'd love to see 20. If we get that 2 in front, I think there's a big psychological advantage to that.
I understand.
And I'll share one other piece of the team effort that has gone on. And I don't know if you saw a while ago in the news, Massachusetts mobilized their National Guard to drive buses. We're not to that stage yet, but our folks are working really hard. An additional challenge that we just recently came to light was in the area of child nutrition, where our supplier, due to a lack of drivers, has shared that they are going to limit our food deliveries. So we all sat down as a team today and mapped out how we're going to supplement that. So there'll be some deliveries, but we're gonna work with our M&O and our transportation folks when they're not driving routes we'll be picking up that food and then redistributing it to the campuses during the week. So again, another example of our support services working with each other. But to give you an idea, those food shortages and those things, we've experienced challenges with that. So, and yet again, the drivers are gonna step up and help us as we distribute that to campuses during the week.
Our drivers are doing an outstanding job. I mean, they're doing double and triple duty every day.
Yeah, thank you, again, for listing out what some of the struggles are that are out of our control as a district. So with the state and the federal laws changing and all that. With some of the positions we're hiring, are we hiring part-time drivers, like where it's just a morning driver, just a PM driver, or do we want it to be consistent, both drivers, both
We
sides?
typically try to hire full-time because that's our need.
Right.
But we will. Right now, we're working one of our guys in distribution that wants to come and drive in the afternoon. And we've got a couple of maintenance employees that do the same thing. They split a route. One drives in the morning, one drives in the afternoon.
So if somebody comes on Saturday and says, I am literally only available in the mornings, will we entertain an interview?
Oh, yeah.
We will?
Yeah,
That's great.
that's one set of kids that's not sitting on the road waiting for a bus to get there.
Thank you.
And we want to do that, but at the same time, we want to keep our standards high so that quality folks are driving our children every day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, a few other items to share with you. First is a traffic study for Elementary 32. Give you an idea what a traffic study does. That information is crucial to the architects as they begin the design process. The report generates information as if the school is running at 125% of capacity. This gives us length requirements for items like the parent drop-off drive, correct placement of those drives, and placement of school zones, crosswalks, and possible traffic signals. So that information is really important to our architects as they design. For Elementary 32, we're going to recommend traffic engineers, and the cost of those can vary a little bit, somewhere between $18,000 and $25,000 for that information. And again, that gives you an idea where that school is going to be located, adjacent to our third egg barn out on Powerline Road. Any questions?
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Nivens. This evening, I come before you to present information item relating to the naming of schools. So, board policy CW Local states that the responsibility of naming a facility rests with the board. So as such, you all open the nominations from any member of our community, and CW Local outlines the guidelines for such nominations. So when submitting a nomination for consideration for the Board of Trustees to review, we ask that our nominators consider legacy, the legacy of the person they are nominating, and also historical significance, contributions to society, and whether or not that person instills a sense of pride. And then additional information in CW Local talks about guidelines for accompanying documentation. Now let's talk about the process itself. So the Board of Trustees is going to accept the nominations for the names of 3 new elementary schools, along with a new middle school, junior high, and high school. And these are schools that are going to be built from the funds from the November 2020 bond. We're going to open nominations at the top of this year, and we'll accept nominations through February 1st. The process after receiving nominations that the administration via the communications department is going to review all nominations and organize them accordingly. You know, we do have a process, there are guidelines, and so we'll be sure, trustees, for your benefit, to provide separate piles for those who follow the process and those who do not, but you will get a copy of every submission that we receive. Then, trustees, you will host a public hearing where individuals who wish to address the board to provide any additional endorsements may do so, and then you can take a vote at a later board meeting. What you see before you is an example of the most recent nomination form that was utilized the last time you all accepted nominations for naming facilities. And on this form, we ask that individuals submit their contact information, providing their name, email address, phone number, identifying which campus they wish to submit the nomination for, and any supporting nominations. Individuals may include additional information. They're not restricted to just this page. And this document is downloadable via our website. And we're also thinking of ways to include a digital version of this format. Something different with the process this year, trustees, is we're working on creating a rubric for you to help guide you as you review the nominations and to assist you in as you make your decision. What's before you now is the timeline of the process. As I stated, the top of the year, we'll open nominations. February 1st will be the deadline to submit your nomination. February 15th, we'll work to get the board copies of all nominations, and you'll have more than a month to review. We suggest you host your public hearing in March, and then April 19th, reconvene for board approval of potential names. Are there any questions?
I've been through this several times now, and the hardest part is narrowing it down, that they tell us, give us your top 10 and email it in, give us your top whatever. So we need I think we would do it, who did it with me last time? We emailed it back and forth till it got down to a small group after the big presentation. Am I correct on that? Okay.
Sounds like that rubric she mentioned will really help with that process.
Right, but then we used the rubric, well, we did kind of have we didn't really have a rubric, but thank you for taking the ones and separating them up, because it was very evident that a lot of them were not, and then we're kind of the bad guys, but, because some were really good, but anyway, we just need enough process between the time of, can you put the timeline back up? Of hearing the public hearing, all nomination, and listening to that, and having time for us to narrow down, so then we can come to a consensus for that April 19th.
Yes, ma'am, certainly.
It's a lot of schools.
And we'll get a lot of names.
I don't know if an hour is gonna be enough time or not, because I remember
Last time it
Well,
Yeah.
we did, last time it was like 3 or 4 hours of people coming through.
Yeah.
And I think we had a special board meeting.
May I ask a question? Did you restrict the time length that someone could speak?
I wasn't here for that one, so
Yes, but it was I don't think it was a regular board meeting. Well, back
Just
then,
for
I
that.
think it was our board workshop that we did it. So, and since we don't really, we would have to probably call a special board meeting.
Okay. So then-
Right, yes. Yes,
Okay, well, if it's the
and
will
lots
the
of
board,
people.
we can make adjustments to the timeline.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions? Mr.
This would
Lambert,
be 3 schools?
5.
3 elementary,
Three elementary.
6 schools, 3 elementaries, a middle, a junior high, and a high school.
We're just
6
kidding,
campuses.
6.
Okay, as she makes her way up here, good evening, trustees. The Lamar Educational Awards Foundation is a nonprofit, community-based organization that supports and provides unique resources to our campuses. And this summer, Leaf applied to be a part of the 2021 summer session of the MBA Rice Capstone Project. During an 11-week period, the team met with Leaf officials. They interviewed certain members of our district, just really to get an understanding of many aspects of how Leaf operates. And so this item is to share a summary of their findings as well as potential next steps. And so presenting this item is our Education Foundation Executive Director, April Nimick.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and Dr. Nivens. As
No, I meant, sorry, the little
Oh, the
laptop.
laptop.
Yeah, just, you can just push it. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, as mentioned, we partnered with Rice University's MBA Capstone Project Program, and what it is those who are applying for their MBA, it's their final project, and small business or nonprofits can apply to be a case study for that group. And so this year, I applied for LEAF to be a case study, and we worked with them during the summer. They looked at everything from our current standings to the district growth, and as mentioned, reached out and just got a sense of marketing and our capabilities as we stand. So this is a brief summary of those findings. Currently, LEAF has a strong 20-year presence in the district. They have some very famous events, well-known events, well-attended events. That was one of the strengths that Rice came up with. Men Who Cook is one that immediately when I got here, I was told I cannot touch. Surf's Up was a very close second. So we do have that presence in the community. Another thing too that they noted is leadership has some corporate and education background. The key findings of their summary is at the current state that we're in, the foundation will not be able to meet the needs of both the district and meet the needs of the district and will likely continue to produce the same level of results. The board initially, during the interview process, was aware of the fast growth. That has been a conversation from the beginning, which is why I reached out to try to get us some help on strategizing as well as prioritizing, and that's why we got Rice involved. The support is limited as far as human capital. The staffing is me. However, the board has approved getting some bookkeeping help. We've had a gracious volunteer that's been with us since March who has really helped us with that. We've also focused a lot of our donation is concentrated heavily in one area of the district, and our goal is to start opening that marketing to the to district-wide, especially the Katie Fulser side. Currently,
April, when you say board, you're talking about the LEAF board,
yes.
just to make sure whoever's listening.
As well, currently technology and organizational resources are not well suited for current or future growth, and that was another thing that we've discussed as a LEAF board, and trying again with that partnership with Rice helped us kind of prioritize and figure out what's our need right now, and then start implementing those within the next. We've started doing that now. The next slide is the solutions roadmap that they've provided, as well as we've kind of collaborated with them. And that's some of the things worth mentioning on that is a succession plan. You know, if something happens, always having a practices and procedures. If you have new leadership involved or just onboarding staffing, as well as updating the bylaws, which we have a board workshop coming up in November, a LEAF board workshop to get that updated as well. Digital marketing. Marketing was a huge focus area. We've currently been really collaborating with the communications team here. They've done a fabulous job helping us with social media, also putting some processes and technologies in place that can help with that and supplement that, so staffing to help with the staffing as well. Also, really partnering with our PTO, PTAs, collaborating, maybe even partnering on events, sharing it throughout the district. So there were some really great strategies that they shared with that, as well as really going in a STEAM focus route, instead of, the events to be a supplement, but having that top layer where, companies, especially corporations, can start funding stuff that either circles back to them and what their industry is, as well as making sure like what they're doing, their money is going directly to a program and or to a student or a classroom. And then the last slide is our action plan for 21-22. We have the board workshop in November, creating a finance committee, hiring a contract bookkeeper, or if we're lucky, having a volunteer continue. Operational, create practices and procedures for operations, updating the bylaws, create board committees, appoint an LCISD representative to serve as a voting member. That is a big push on the grant side to make sure that our goals, what we're granting and what we're funding in the district is aligning with all the district goals. And then continue to partner with nonprofit Partners for Good has really helped us in the last 3 or 4 weeks figure out business partners and different things that we, with teachers' needs that have come and reached out to us, or even program needs for the district as well. And that is what we plan to do as for 2021, 2022. We also currently took our grants system from a paper system to an online system this year. So we started that process already. And then we are looking at purchasing a grant management system, a better grant management system, as well as donor management to ensure that all of our donor documentation, as well as their tracking, their annual give, making sure that they're getting the recognition. We're putting all those systems in place as well to ensure that there's no missed donors, no missed opportunities as well. Any questions?
Can I ask how many grants were submitted this year?
Yes, 433.
Wow.
Yes, our grants.
And the more we build schools, the worse it
The
gets.
larger that's going to get. So yeah, we had 433 LEAF grants submitted, and we had 8 travel grants submitted for this year, for the fall.
And you're the only employee of LEAF? Is that right?
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, half of your salary is paid by the district and half of it's raised. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And that's why you have a separate independent board than this board.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 50% district, 50% foundation. Mm-hmm.
On the, I don't think I can go back on the slide. Where am I?
Oh, sorry.
On the, can you go back one slide, please?
Sure.
On the, oh, nope, go forward one. There you go. Appoint an LCISD representative. What pool of people would that come from?
So that's what we plan on discussing at the November workshop, is who the board thinks who would be the best position. We've talked to Dr. Mossage. We've talked to, we've reached out to several administration in the district to see who they thought would be the best bet, and then bringing that to the board on the 11th.
So it's an employee of the district is
Correct.
who it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
To the LEAF board.
To the LEAF board, correct.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, to make sure we have, and that, like I said, and the biggest focus for that is just to make sure when you have 433 grants, we want to make sure as a foundation that whomever we're giving those grants to, our whole goal is to support. And so what we're funding needs to make sure that it's in line with what you guys are trying to achieve. And that's the main focus for that.
And be aware that there's a bunch of people I've gotten together that are gonna help read these grants. She won't be.
No, I won't be.
We won't be giving all
433. Yeah, to one person. And it being electronic has helped. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for making your way up here. I appreciate it.
She just had knee
And I will
surgery.
see y'all Thursday at the golf tournament.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. You want to give a plug about that, or is that's already?
That's
locked in?
We're good, ready to go on Thursday, and then we have February 19th is Men Who Cook and Surfs Up. We'll be back and on May 6th.
Very exciting. All right.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Okay, board, now we have our future action items, and so one is discussion of resolution for casting votes for candidates to serve on the board of directors for the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District. And so Ms. Ludwig is here to give us a brief summary of that.
Good morning, good morning. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Nevins. I'd like to cover item 11A1, which is the discussion of casting votes for the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. If you'll remember last month, the board was able to submit a nomination for the board of directors, but did not nominate any candidates. I'd like to talk about the process of their election first. Elections are held in odd-numbered years. There are 5 directors that are appointed for 2-year terms. The entities that appoint or nominate the directors are those that have tax levies within this area and within Fort Bend County. Each taxing unit that's entitled to vote can nominate by resolution 1 candidate for each position, so they can nominate up to 5 candidates. An official ballot then is prepared by the chief appraiser and submitted to each taxing unit. And then we expect the ballot to arrive in the district in late October or early November. And then we expect to present the ballot in the November meeting. All the votes may be cast for 1 candidate, or you can split your votes up among all 5, or any number of the 5. There will be 5,000 votes that will be cast in total by all eligible voting entities, and the entitlements are based on the percentage total of the tax levy by unit to the total levy in Fort Bend County. Our percentage share is about 11.5% of the total, and so our allocation per director is right at 115 votes, and we get 5 of those. So your total allocation is 575 votes, and you can cast those all for 1 candidate or divide them up among the 5 positions. So that is the process, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I say something real fast?
Yes.
One of them did reach out to me.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to say that or not, or say his name or not.
It's a future
I don't know.
item. Did we,
Yes,
we did, okay.
And I think it's who we gave our votes to last time. Jim
That's
Key.
2 years ago.
Jim Key.
Sounds right.
I think that's who reached out to us last time.
Yes.
Anyway, he left me a message, FYI.
Good to know, thank
So,
you.
That's that.
It's been a minute since that last time. Thank you.
All right, good evening again. I have a few final items to share with the board. First is our discussion of the HVAC testing and balancing for Huggins Elementary for the school security vestibule additions and renovations. HVAC testing and balancing is an engineering service that measures airflow to make recommendations to get the correct flow out of our air handling units. The process is intended to ensure the facility performs as designed for maximum occupant comfort. But I would describe it as it's the same way. If you have warm or cool places in your home when your HVAC is working, we try to avoid that in our large mechanical systems. So we try to work with this company to balance that out so we have comfort across the building. Engineered Air Balance Incorporated is the firm that we use to do this. The cost for the project could range between $30,000 to $50,000. It does vary based on the extent of service. Any questions on that? All right, next we have the discussion of commissioning for the Terry High School and Georgia Junior High School additions and renovation, Phase 1. This is a Bond 2020 project. In November 1st, 2016, the Texas State Energy Conservation Office amended the Energy Code to require commissioning. Commissioning agent reviews the construction documents and confirms that the systems are performing as designed. This is a third-party engineer that will inspect and verify. The firm that we use in this process is Estes, McClure and Associates, and the cost ranges between $10,000 and $20,000 for the commissioning process. Any questions? And a discussion of the geotechnical study for elementary school number 32. Geotechnical information is crucial to the architects as they begin the design process. Reports are generated that list items such as the subgrade preparation, type of soil, is it sandy or clay for example, the foundation design and construction, expansion rate, how the soil expands when it's wet, pavement design guidelines, which mean the concrete specifications when it's created. The group that we will recommend for elementary number 32 is Terracon. The estimated cost for the project will run between $14,000 and $20,000 for the geotech study. Any questions? All right, thank you.
We will now review future action. items. We will now ask for items on the future consent agenda that trustees would like to pull for discussion for the November board meeting. Are we going to have a discussion on number 37? On the ESSER funds? I'd like it to be an action item so we can discuss the ESSER funds.
Are you looking at
Number 37?
number 37?
Yes.
That's probably worth pulling and having a
Yes.
discussion
Okay.
next month.
I didn't know if we were gonna have a presentation on.
And we'll read number 36.
It's the same information.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull number 37, so that is 12A37.
Do we need to discuss or just read? 36 is our resolution regarding the closure of schools due to Hurricane Nicholas.
We'll just read it, but it can be part of the consent agenda, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think it needs
Yeah.
any explanation, but,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so it sounds like just 37. Just 12A37. Okay, so it is 8:41 PM. We are adjourning to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act, to discuss personnel, land acquisition, or consultation with our attorney. We are now back in open session. It is 9:17 PM. We have a quorum with the exception of Mr. Hunt. Are there any motions to be made?
Yes, ma'am, I've got a motion. I move that the board vote to give notice to Mr. Troy Moore of his proposed suspension without pay pending discharge.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, or is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Any other motions?
I make a motion that the Board of Trustees approve the personnel as presented.
Do I have a second? Mr. Hubenak seconds. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, none opposed, motion carries. Okay, are there any future agenda items to be added? Are there any upcoming meetings and events?
Golf tournament on Thursday and the play at Foster High School for the blue-haired Allison. Oh, I didn't, hang on. A blue-haired, she's so cute. I don't know if there's anything else.
Anything else? All right.
Oh, the pumpkin patch, if anybody wants to go see that. Isn't that right?
It's Tuesday,
Tuesday over
at the annex, yes.
in the annex.
All right.
Kids are so cute.
Yes. All right. This meeting's adjourned. It is 9:19 PM.